What's going on? All right. Well, I didn't know I was speaking this morning, so but good morning. And it's always great to be among Democrats. I can tell you what's happening at the county. I can give you a little bit of perspective of what I'm thinking about right now, both what we're dealing with presently and what's coming at us. So right now in the county, I have one positive thing to report. So at least for my district. In my district, we've only had one person affected by ice so far, which is a huge win for District 3. But the bad news is the other districts have started to be hit, and some of them have been hit much, much worse. Supervisor Canepa's district right next door, seen many people affected. And so we all are keeping track of that and how we deal with that. But another thing that we deal with right now at the county in terms of what's happening at the national level is we're starting to have to forecast what's going to happen with respect to the reimbursements that come to us from the federal government. And that could be in the hundreds of millions of dollars that we get hit by that. So we're trying to prepare for that. It hasn't, the way that billing works, it hasn't started to hit us just yet, but it has hit us in some ways. And so an example I can give you that is when I first came into office, I really want to improve healthcare along this coastline. And if you get down into the mid-coast and to the south coast, there really is, it's a healthcare desert. And Seton closed their emergency room in the mid-coast. We got a whole bunch of fight with them about that. Congressman Eshu and I at that time encouraged the Attorney General to sue him, and he is suing them right now. But at the same time I went with the county executive, and we convinced Sequoia Dignity Healthcare to open an urgent care center in Half Moon Bay. Well, the pilot went great. If you're looking at the hockey stick of use, it kept going up. But with what's happened with reimbursements and everything, Dignity's told us they're closing that urgent care center. So the county has to step forward now, and we're trying to take our coastside clinic and turn those services over into doing that. That's just one example. Other thing we're dealing with right now is the economy is just frankly horrible. We're lucky in San Mateo County. We only saw a slight increase in unemployment, but because you're employed doesn't mean you're making enough to live. And what we see happening, what we're hearing from those who provide food, the most basic of service, is that, and you see it when you go, is the lines are getting longer. And what's worse is there's less money for them. So Supervisor Spear and I right now are getting ready to figure out how we're going to have to ask the county to provide more money to those providers so they can go out and buy proteins. Just basic proteins to give people. What a lot of those who are providing food services right now, what they're doing is they're having to supplement with money, with foods that they get from the grocery stores, but a lot of it frankly looks like garbage to me. It's just a bunch of sugars. It's a bunch of stuff that keeps for a long time, but we really don't want people eating. So we really have a problem. I am very concerned about the outlook of the state budget. So if you look what's happening right now at the state level, the state had a pretty significant deficit this year, but if you look at the year-over-year numbers, unemployment's rising in this state. And every sector of the state economy last year, save two, government and healthcare education, every other sector, we lost jobs. And we didn't just lose jobs in some of those areas, we lost them by double digits, which is a really bad outlook because the two sectors I talked about are supported by tax dollars. So we are really, at the county, I saw Dave Pine last night, and I gave him a hard time, former Supervisor Pine, because every year they were there at the county, they saw the economy grow. We're seeing jobs and basically we saw them stay flat, and then for the first time last year we saw them dip 1%. So we're really trying right now to figure out how we go ahead and we provide more services, we were more efficient with our services with less money. And that's something I think the other thing that we're dealing with. Gosh, I feel like I'm all gloom and doom with y'all. But the other thing we're dealing with is the state. We have something called a vehicle license fee offset that we get from the state. And what happened was, goes way back to when Arnold Schwarzenegger was governor. He did something with the vehicle license fee where he got rid of it. Whole complicated formula, but Governor Brown came in. They decided they were going to go ahead and figure out how to reimburse everybody with that, but they attached it to school districts. In San Mateo County, we have so many basic aid school districts that we're upside down on the formula. So we're one of 5 counties in the state where we actually aren't getting our vehicle license fee money offset back. It's to the tune to the county $130 million bucks. So every year, what's happened in budgets prior to this year was they always made it up to us with the budget fix at the end of the year. This year, they said we're going to keep $40 million of what we owe you. We're not going to give it to you. Next year, we might not give you anything at all. So we're suing the state over that right now and trying to figure out a fix. It has a huge impact. It has a huge impact in the county, as you can imagine, because those aren't pass-through dollars. A lot of our $5 billion budget are pass-through dollars from the state and from Fed that we go ahead and we do reimbursements with. These are dollars that come to us and we actually use them for capital needs. We use them to go ahead, take care of, pay our employees. These are really important dollars, so it's a really big hit to lose them. It's also a big hit to every city because every city gets VLF money. So every city I have right now in my district is looking at a shortfall because that VLF money disappeared. It's a big, big deal. So we're engaged in that fight right now as well. I can talk to you about some of the things that recently come up in front of the board, but there are positive notes. We are figuring out how to do these things. How are we going to go? How do we go ahead and provide these services? An example, Congresswoman Spear, I always call her Congresswoman. Congresswoman Spear and I just recently relaunched a human trafficking task force in San Mateo County. It was something that had gone away. With the Super Bowl coming and with the World Cup coming, we think it's more important than ever that we have that task force relaunched. Something I share that I'm proud of that I can share with Democrats in this room that I couldn't share publicly. Is that video just for? Okay, well. All right, well, we had a big win in terms of something that got accomplished in this county, but we didn't make a big deal out of it for the press because we wanted to protect the people there. And so if any of you want to talk to me afterwards about that, I'm happy to talk to you about that. But we're making progress in the county, but we're doing it quietly to protect the vulnerable. So, and I just can't speak enough to all of you for all the wonderful things that you do. Right now, if all of that information I just shared for you, it'd be really easy to get really frustrated. And it's those at the local level who are right now, who are standing up, who are looking at their neighbor, who are trying to figure out to help them more than ever. I just came down from a Pacific Beach Coalition and looking at all the kids who volunteered, who are out there every day, and we're going to need that more than ever right now. The sense of community spirit will lift us through these times and will bring us to tomorrow. But it's times like this that we all rely on each other to get there. So I can't express enough how grateful I am to all of you who are stepping into those gaps. And through it, I know we will get through all of this together. And the only other thing I'd say to you is about your elected officials, okay? Your local ones, who serve on your school boards, who serve on your city councils, who serve on your special districts. It's really hard for them right now because they have less money than ever to deliver services, and everyone they talk to is in fight or flight mode and tearing them a new one. So if you just walk up to them every once in a while and give them a hug, that's going to help them do that job. Okay? Yeah. So, and I'm happy to answer any questions for you all that y'all might have.
What about childcare?
Childcare is a huge. So there is a. So I am always candid. We had a big fight recently at our board. All right. So Senator Rena brought forth SB 63, which is a transit measure, a five Bay Area County transit measure, and it's going to bring millions of dollars to local transit, which is really important. Supervisor Spear and I pushed back on that measure while it was being negotiated. That measure is going to bring sales tax in San Mateo County and make it the second highest sales tax in the state. All right, for reasons we thought Senator Spear, Senator Wiener supersized that measure. And the reason why we thought that was because for the first time, San Mateo County is going to be asked to give $35 million a year to BART and another $10 million a year to Muni. We don't have that obligation now. And we frankly thought that that wasn't just a new obligation, but a supersized obligation. At a time when we're trying to figure out how we provide child care. How do we go, could we use some of that capacity and use it to do other things that we need? Because if you supervise one measure for one issue, you'll lose the ability to go ahead and ask people to support the others. So Supervisor Spear and I actually thought we'd be better off in this county to pass a general measure where we could meet our obligations to Caltrain, negotiate our obligations to the other transit measures, and then take the excess money from that and try to meet other needs. And I think, so we really pushed hard. We lost. I mean, we didn't just lose, we catastrophically lost. So the measure, SB 63 passed in the legislature. We didn't get any of the concessions we wanted. And it's going to be a real question, I think, for voters. I'm not sure, I tried to warn Senator Wiener, I'm not sure San Mateo County residents are going to support that for a lot of the reasons I just said. But mostly, I'm not sure how much people have the capacity to say we want to pay the second highest sales tax in the state right now. I know so many people are hurting in this county right now. I'm really worried, and I'll tell you, I'm always honest with you, I'm really worried about our small business owners. I have so many coming to me telling me right now it's worse than COVID for them. I had a gentleman who has a sandwich shop in Menlo Park. He's been there for 40 years. And I walked in there at lunchtime and it was empty. He said it's never been like this before. So so when you say childcare, I think of that, I think of childcare and I say, we want to do it. We're trying to figure out a way that we can do something around childcare in this county. We're going to try to figure out how we can go ahead and one of the ideas we have is to go ahead and make it easier for people to open childcare centers in their homes. But that's going to be complicated too. People are going to have to support their city councils in those zoning changes because all of a sudden you got a business in your neighborhood. But you know what? People need that childcare really badly, and they're also going to give people the chance to make a living. So those are the discussions that we're going to be having with communities across the county.
So in the transit issue, we're all paying in Pacifica and have to pay. We don't have transit.
I do not disagree with you, and I made that argument when they went through. I said, guys, how am I supposed to tell folks on the coast that they have to pay this sales tax? And I don't even have bus stops in the mid-coast. There's no access to, I mean, you have you have 2 buses that come through here. So it's going to be I think it's going to be a really tough sell, and especially in my district, I have the South Coast, my areas really don't get the type of transit that they're talking about. And there's very few cities that actually touch that BART station. When I did the calculation on it, it came down to the amount of money that we're giving BART comes down to that for every San Mateo County rider who rides it per trip, in addition to what they pay for their ticket, it'll be an $11 subsidy for each trip. Yes. No. That's the other thing that I didn't like about it. So the other thing I didn't like about it was that San Francisco, I said, well, how is it that our sales tax is going to rise above 10.5% or whatever it's going to be, and San Francisco is going to have a 9-point sales tax? That's crazy to me. And they said, well, San Francisco wanted to reserve some of that because they're going to take obligations. Right now they have, they pay for part of their muni out of their general fund, And they want to go ahead and move that and take that general fund obligation over and move it over here. So they're doing all sorts of, I said, why are we making decisions to make it easier for them to make their policy decisions so they can provide health care, so they can provide theirs, and we're not able to do it for ours. So no, I don't think we got a fair deal with San Francisco at all. We're all donating up there. No, they're not. You have your part of that deal. Listen to this. Part of that deal was San Mateo County's obligation to Caltrain and Santa Clara County's obligation to Caltrain increased, so San Francisco could pay less. So San Francisco could only pay $10 million, compared, I think, to the between 30 to 40 million we're going to have to pay when all three of us are in the JPA together. They're paying their well. That was their argument. So we argued about the airport because if you look at, the way I view the airport is everybody's. People use that airport from everywhere, and they were saying, well, we want to count ridership from the airport as part of your calculations. And I said, what are you talking about? Like, why is ridership going to and from the airport part of a San Mateo County calculation? Because those riders are coming from San Francisco and from other places. Why are they? That's not helping. That's helping everybody. That's just not helping our county. So it's going to be a tough. I know this is going to be a tough sell in Pacifica and in Half Moon Bay and the Mid Coast, and I know in other parts of my district it's going to be a tough sell. If people want to support it, I am all for you. Right now, I'm not. It's a tough thing, but I'm not. And I understand people depend on transit, and like Jackie and I have both said, we will figure out a way to support what we believe our obligations are in our county. But it is too much for us to take away from the other obligations we need to meet. Any other questions I can answer for you? Yeah.
Can you clarify in simple terms what the VLF offset, how it's supposed to work? The situation that you described?
The VLF offset, the way that they did it was basically, the formula is so complicated, but basically what's happened every other year is they look at the 5 counties that get upside down on the formula. It's like for our county, it's like this year, I think it was like 100. And they say, we're going to, at the very end, there's going to be a piece of legislation that says, we're fixing this, we're giving you your $100 million. And it's a piece of special legislation at the end of the budget session. It's negotiated through the California Department of Finance. The governor signs off on it. This year, the Department of Finance, with the budget their deficit, they're saying, when it came time to do the legislative fix, they said, we're not doing it. Literally said, we're not doing it at all. And we said, what are you talking about? That's $100 million. That's just for the county, let alone what each city is supposed to get. And so big fight. And finally they said, okay, we're going to give it to you, but we're keeping $40 million. And we said, well, we're suing you because this has been identified for so many years, and this was the fix you came up with when you had the deficient formula to begin with. And so now we're doing that, but we also, frankly, are pursuing trying to get a fix, a legislative fix. And it's difficult. It's a difficult thing to do because when you think about it, it's only 5 counties. So you have to get the rest of the legislature to say, well, we're going to agree to help those 5 counties. Which is actually what I said to Senator Wiener when SB 63 came around. I said, hey, can you think that we can leverage this? Because I'll support SB 63 if you get us a guarantee on our VLF. Can we leverage this in the legislation? But we didn't get it, so, yeah. Yeah.
It has never done that. It's never made sense. Is it really something we want to continue to support after 50 years of failure? Or would we be better off with a brand new system using more modern technology that having a smaller deficit?
The difficult thing, so BART serves a lot of folks who are vulnerable. And so it'd be very difficult to get rid of. But The problem that we have in San Mateo County related to it is we're not part of the agency that runs it. We don't have any representation on it, which was another point Supervisor Spear and Assembly Member Pappen and I were making, was this is increase in taxation without representation as well. There's no accountability to us that we will actually be served in our county after we contribute this much. And we've had trouble with BART actually with their stations in our county and with them maintaining them to the level that we expect in their interaction with the cities. So I hear you on that. It's very difficult, but because we don't have any representation there, I can't even turn to you. It's hard because I want to say to you, well, we need it to serve these vulnerable populations, and we do. But it's also difficult for me to say to you, but in San Mateo County, we're going to have any influence over how that's done for residents in our county. Yes. No, it's fine. I've said I'm on record. So I'm supporting Proposition 50 personally. This raised a little bit of ruckus. People might I've received some folks who have been upset with me. This item was brought before the Board of Supervisors for an endorsement. All right? At the Board of Supervisors, I looked at this and I said, in the elections code, the Board of Supervisors is a nonpartisan office. Right? Now, for those of you who don't know, I'm an attorney. I take things like that very seriously. And I wrestled with it. And I said to my colleagues, look, this is a partisan measure. I cannot escape. This is a partisan measure meant to elect more Democrats to Congress. As a nonpartisan board, I can't endorse this on behalf of the county with county power. It would be like saying the district's attorney's office should treat someone of a party different than another. So I support it as an individual, as an individual elected. I give it my endorsement, but on the supervisor's vote, I abstained.
Being here and answering all of our questions. We were going to ask him to come and speak in a couple months. We may do it again. And now we have Sam Liccardo.
Hi, Sue. What'd you like me to do?
Hi, Sam. How are you?
Should we do just a Q&A, or you want to do maybe a quick presentation on what the heck we're working on, DC? Yeah. What the heck's going on out there?
You know what? I was supposed to announce the information about you.
Oh, that's okay.
And
I'm Sam. I work for you.
And I'm going to let you introduce yourself today because tell us about San Jose and what you've done in the past and what you're doing right now. And I'm going to let you speak because you probably have something else to do.
Oh, no. I'm here, so I'm happy to be here. And it's an honor to follow. Good morning. Yeah. Thank you for having me. And it's a tough act to follow, but I'm grateful to have Supervisor Miller here. Really has been an amazing source of advice and information as we've been working together on a lot of really important initiatives. Really, his leadership, particularly convening an awful lot of folks to work on the big challenging infrastructure issues here in the county, has been very helpful for us because we're about to launch something to get the federal government much more engaged in as a partner with the work that you're leading. So thank you, Ray, for your leadership. And I notice we just had Mayor Sue Beckmeyer just walked in. Hi, Sue. Great to see you. Hello, Mayor. Yeah, she had other stuff going on. Am I all messed up?
You're good.
See, and Ray even fixes my jacket. That's a full-service politician right there. So I wanted to just briefly describe what we're working on, and then I'll stop talking. I'd love to hear your questions and concerns. I'll put it into two buckets, what we're doing here and what we're doing in D.C., because I'll start with here. We have been in office now, about 8 months. We've got a team up and running. We have 3 offices. About 80% of our population lives in Santa Clara County, so we've got 2 offices down there, one in San Jose and kind of on the Campbell border, and then one in Los Altos. We've got an office down in Half Moon Bay, which basically we're stealing space from Ray, who's kind enough to give us a little room. So Gisela, who's standing there in the back, will be there a couple times a week, or is there a couple times a week, along with Nicholas. And so we certainly want to be of service to you if you need to make connection with us in person. And we decided, given, look, I'll be blunt with you, as a first-term member of the minority party, it is not immediately the case that I'm going to get everything I want in Washington, D.C. by waving my hands. I'm no longer mayor, I get it. So in addition to all the work that we're doing out there, it's imperative for me to really focus on what we can do here, where we can be more effective, particularly in a role in convening and marshaling local resources in partnership with the feds to hopefully get something done. We identified 2 key priorities for our district. One is wildfire mitigation all along the spine of all the hillside communities, the Santa Cruz Mountain Range, and coastside resilience, particularly with regard to infrastructure. And I don't need to tell all of you what that means. You know it better than anyone. Obviously, we have massive challenges as we think about coastal erosion, as we think about roads, we think about power, access for internet, et cetera, et cetera. So what we want to do with these 2 initiatives, and we're starting this one, I guess, more formally in early November, building on the work that Ray's team has already done regionally in terms of prioritizing projects. We want to put sort of a federal overlay over that and start to think about where are there federal pots of money that actually match with these critical projects up and down the coast side, so that we can bring our resources together with the states and the region and start to prioritize how we can accelerate work, for example, on studies, on getting permits, all the other things you need to do to get these projects out of the ground. Recognizing, look, we know what's going on with this administration, and money's being taken away, most recently the BRIC funding here in Pacifica and also in Menlo Park, which is hugely frustrating, I know, for many of you who have been leading this effort for many, many years. But what effective communities can do in the meantime when there's no money is get organized, be very focused, and be ready. That is, when we've got our permits first, when we've done our environmental first, we've done our studies, and most importantly, when we have gotten organized and we agree on what we want, we are going to be way ahead of all the other communities that are still figuring it out. And so that's the work we're going to be undertaking with all of you in the months ahead. With regard to the BRIC funding in particular, which I know is a sore spot, we managed to persuade 2 Republicans to sponsor a bill to restore BRIC funding. We are trying to get more Republicans on that bill so that we can go around the House leadership and get it to the floor for a vote, because we're pretty sure there's lots of red districts that are impacted by climate in the same way that we are. And so we're going to be hustling hard on those and other priorities on the legislative front. To give you a sense of what I've been working on, I'm on the Financial Services Committee. I'm one of only 2 frosh to get on one of what they call the exclusive committees. These are committees with large jurisdiction that tend to have a little more influence on outcomes. This committee is particularly important to me because it has jurisdiction over housing. And as a recovering mayor, I know something about the housing crisis that we all are grappling with. And so I've got 4 bills now moving through the committee with Republican co-sponsors. Why is that important? Because it turns out Republicans run both houses, and you better go find somebody on the other side that's willing to support it if you think you're going to get it passed. And these are bills that are primarily focused on expanding housing supply, of affordable housing, making it easier to build affordable housing, getting some of the red tape out of the way on affordability. And one of the bills most specifically is around empowering homeowners to become home providers, because we know a lot of homeowners who want to have ADUs in their backyard, either for a family member or maybe for a teacher or somebody who needs affordable housing, can't get the financing to build. And we think we can solve that problem with the help of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, the same way that they have solved it for decades for tens of millions of Americans who are borrowing money to buy their home, their first home in particular. We can help reduce interest rates and get banks in the game of actually doing lending that can help a lot of homeowners build. And so we're working on those kinds of ideas on the legislative front. I would imagine much more important to all of you is not what's going on the legislative front, because frankly, it's not very interesting. What is much more interesting is how this president and this Congress is destroying our country and destroying our Constitution. On that front, I'm spending an awful lot of time doing a few things. First, I'm trying to have those quiet conversations to figure out how we can get Republicans to actually stiffen their spines and stand up on critical legislation. Most recently, given what's happening with the FCC, I'm very concerned about First Amendment in this country. I know many of you are. So I'm having a lot of quiet conversations with a half dozen Republicans about what we can do to send a shout over the bow for the FCC commissioner and everybody else that they can't go around threatening folks around revocation of TV licenses and mergers and so forth, and force them to recuse themselves if they're going to be saying anything publicly in that regard. So essentially to make them impotent from actually doing anything to follow through on their threats. So we're working with a group. I can't tell you we've got success by any stretch now. This is a long game. It takes weeks and sometimes months, but that's what we've got to be doing. Working on a series of other initiatives. One, to criminalize the president's conduct with regard to the billions he's making right now on crypto. Another relating to protecting the many programs that are being defunded previously through DOGE, now through rescissions and other measures, to give individual Americans a private right of action to sue when executive branch officials are engaged in doing what we've all seen, which is basically violating federal law to withhold money. And another measure focused on the National Guard deployments, because I think we're all very concerned about the militarization that we're seeing in cities now, in Memphis, and we expect many other cities to come, forcing some transparency. In each case, we're working on trying to get Republicans to stand up and get on these bills. Why? Because it's the only way you're going to be able to send a shot over the bow here for this administration to back off. So while those quiet conversations are happening, we're very loudly engaged in litigation. I'm a recovering lawyer, you may know that. I used to be a criminal prosecutor, so I'm working with a whole bunch of folks in groups like Public Citizen, Democracy Forward, and others. If you happen to give and support these organizations, please continue to do so. They're doing the Lord's work right now. They have been much more successful than you might think. If you look at the media, we have secured more than, well, they have. We've been supporting their work in different ways, but they've secured more than 200 injunctions so far that have either limited or stopped this administration across a whole host of issues around birthright citizenship and terminations, a whole host of things that matter to all of us. And what we are seeing, what the media is not telling us, that I think is important to know, as bad as many of the Supreme Court decisions have been, and there have been plenty of bad ones, for the most part, these decisions are not getting appealed. In other words, the administration, there are a few lawyers in the administration who understand a little bit about what they're doing, not a lot, but they understand that some of these, if they appeal them, they're going to get adverse decisions in the Supreme Court, so they're dropping them. And so those victories are important. We're going to keep fighting them. And my job is, as a member of Congress, is working with them in a rapid response team, writing amicus briefs to support them, getting them connected to resources and attorneys, and helping them with strategy and information. So we'll continue to do that. Yes, sir? Just Democracy Forward, Public Citizen, ACLU, there's several, but Democracy Forward is probably doing more of this litigation than anyone else, but a lot of great groups out there, so please do continue to support them. And then finally, we got to win in 26, and we got to win in 28. So I just want to say a few words about that. I don't need to tell you all because you all know politics. First, we got to win in November, and we need volunteers to get involved. This is something, you know, I'm asked all the time, hey, Sam, it's a disaster out there. It's a shit show in D.C. What can I do about it? This is something you can do. We don't necessarily need voters somewhere else in the state or somewhere else in the country. We need voters right here in Pacifica to support Prop 50 in November. It's going to be critical for us. None of us I know likes redistricting. It's a terrible thing, except for the fact that we can't bring a knife into a gunfight. And we've got a gunfight right now. And so I know that what's happening in Texas is going to continue happening in Missouri, Indiana, and Florida. I think, you know, for those who are the purists, and frankly, I'm one of them who thinks it's a horrible thing to be redistricting, I think there's some very important distinctions here. And I don't need to tell all of you, but I'm sure many of you have been thinking about this. These are not maps drawn by the White House, then given to a state legislator and said, thou shalt. We're giving this to the voters. Voters are deciding whether or not to redraw those maps. This is not permanent, it's temporary. And unlike whatever's happening in Texas, this will comply with Voting Rights Act, with federal law. And complying with the law is a good idea if you're going to try to pass a measure. So those 3 points of distinction are very important. I know this is frustrating for a lot of folks who believe that this is something politicians should be staying out of, and you're right. Now we still got to win in November. So we need volunteers, and I know you guys are marshaling efforts. CADEM has their website, so please go online if you'd like to go find an easy way to get involved and engaged. We just need folks knocking on doors, getting folks out to vote. It's going to be critical. The other thing, what I'm spending most of my time on, frankly, is representing Silicon Valley as I do, which is regarded for many years by our party as the ATM for the rest of the country. I'm trying to help the Democrats in the battleground districts win. We're doing that in a lot of different ways, bringing leadership back here, Hakeem Jeffries and others, to be speaking with donors, and then hosting lots of folks. We had Derek Tran last week on October 4th. We're going to have Kristen McDonald-Rivet. These are all folks who are running in districts that Donald Trump won, but Democrats won, right? And that's an important point of distinction. It was a disastrous year last year, right? We lost the White House, we lost the popular vote, we lost the Senate, we lost state houses throughout the country, and we won 2 seats in the House of Representatives. And it's important for people to appreciate that, because I know there's a lot of frustration. Democratic Party doesn't have a voice, doesn't blah, blah, blah. I hear it all, I get it, okay, fine. And by the way, they're really not taking advice from the guy who just got there about 30 weeks ago. So I appreciate you may have advice for me to pass along, but they're probably not that interested in what I have to say. Well, they are interested in what I have to do, which is I need to get the Silicon Valley more aligned with the party and supporting folks in battleground districts. And so I'm doing that, and bluntly, it's through fundraising because they need it. They're fighting, thank you, they're fighting a machine. And so we got to do what we can. But going back to these frontline members, these folks who are winning battleground districts, they know their communities. Regardless of what you think our message needs to be nationally, it may be right, but they know how to win in Michigan. They know how to win in Orange County, and those messages that they know are the ones that are going to propel us in 26, because this is not a race where we're going to have a national candidate, right? We have to, we have to get to 218. And that's how we make Donald Trump a lame duck president. And so the strategy is straightforward. For me, I launched a group called Innovation for Good. This is an effort to see how we can bring the innovation economy back behind the Democratic Party, and perhaps it wouldn't hurt for Democrats to come back and listen to folks who are doing research at Stanford and starting startups and so forth, understanding the innovation economy, and then we get them aligned and supporting. And hopefully, with the goal that we can win these battleground districts. We're helping my colleagues over the next several months who are in now, who have to face very tough battles. And then starting in 2026, we're going to focus on candidates who are in these red to blue races. And I'm very optimistic, both based on the data we're seeing and how we're winning in places like Iowa and Pennsylvania, and based on the candidates we have. Some very impressive woman who's running, 2 women who are veterans who are running in the Midwest with great credentials and backgrounds. One in Arizona. We've got great candidates who can win in these tough districts because they understand what a purple district looks like. and how they can win. And as has been said to me a few times, nothing matters if we don't win in 26 because we're simply going to have to put up with more Donald Trump and the Republican reign. So I'm highly motivated to do whatever I can. I'm very interested in your thoughts about how we can do better. So I'm going to stop talking now. I've talked long enough. Thanks. Yeah, welcome any questions.
So, questions?
And if you'd like to direct them to Ray, I'd prefer that.
We did that.
Oh, you did that already? Okay, here we go. All right, here we go. Yes, sir.
Have you ever heard of Nathan Taylor of the Election Truth Alliance?
I've heard of them, but I don't know much about them.
He's like a statistical expert.
Yeah.
He was looking at the graphs of the 2024 election and noticed some anomalies, which may indicate that the election was manipulated, it was rigged.
Yeah.
And so one of the places was, I'll tell you about a little work I've done. Clark County, Nevada.
Yep.
It's the biggest county in Nevada.
Vegas, yeah.
And he studied the graphs there. And you'll have to, I would urge that you look at,
Gil, look, thank you for what you're doing. It's very important. The big question is what do I and what do we do about it? It seems to me you're doing the right thing going to the Secretary of State of Nevada, then obviously to the media, the extent that we can make a case that's both persuasive and clearly easily explained, because we know we've got a lot of short attention spans when it comes to this stuff. I am a little afraid of becoming the party that is attacking election inconsistencies. I want to be honest with you about that. That's what they do. And I'm really worried about the future of our democracy to the extent that everyone decides that elections don't matter and they're all corrupt. And I know that's not what you're saying. You're trying to uphold them. So I think it's important for us to be delicate about this and make sure that, by all means, let's dig in as much as we can. I don't have any levers of power in Washington to be able to prompt an investigation. In the Oversight Committee, we have a minority just like we do on every committee. I'd certainly welcome an opportunity to find a way to do this, which we had some kind of bipartisan audit of a whole bunch of states. But I would need to go find some Republicans who would be willing to do that in states that they won. So.
Don't be cowed by optics, and I would say, get to know this guy
Yeah.
and invite him to a congressional meeting and we'll lighten the Republicans up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to do that. Look, I think, I missed one very important point. We have the courts as well. And obviously, the most important thing is let's get the facts right. I think clearly you've got some facts. It sounds like you're doing all the right things. I'm very interested in learning more and certainly happy to talk to him. If we have the facts, then we've got the media, we've got the courts, and hopefully the Nevada Secretary of State. I think those are our three best paths. I don't think this Congress is going to do a damn thing.
My name's Steve Johnson.
Hey, Steve. Good to see you again.
We're in a position where getting things passed is hard.
Yep.
But we're also in a position where we really need to stand up. This president is committing crimes almost every day.
Yep.
We need to file articles of impeachment. They need to be revoked. Charges because he continues to violate.
Yeah, those are really long articles. Yeah.
And even though there's no chance of them passing
That's right.
out of the House right now,
Yep.
there's an extremely important principle in play here, standing up where you can.
Yep.
I know you can't win a vote like that,
Right.
but we have to make it a formal set of charges.
Yep.
That the United States Congress is standing up and saying, this is enough.
Yep.
We have to stop this. These are legal, these are clear violations of the Constitution. Again this week, I'm helping with the protest here on Maury Point.
Yeah. Yeah.
My son, and then yesterday was Trump's speech is not free speech.
Yeah.
That's what I'll be holding up today, and I may even get shot up there.
Right.
We're in that kind of environment.
Yeah.
Please, I know it can't win.
Yeah.
It'll be relatively too strong for help as our Congressman.
Steve, thank you. I know that everybody in this room agrees with you about this fundamental fact that this president has committed many impeachable offenses. I was asked in January, and it was late January, when he was already sort of starting his run. It might have been early February. Some media group did a survey of all the Democrats. Has he committed anything he should be impeached for yet? I was one of 8 Democrats who said yes, because I could already point to stuff. Like putting out, unfortunately, there are only 8 of us at that point, but obviously I think it'd be unanimous now.
But you can't introduce the bill on your own, right?
Well, I can introduce it. Now, here's the challenge. My goal is to end Donald Trump's autocratic rule. It is to do so as quickly as possible and as effectively as possible. I think we all agree on that goal. Donald Trump was impeached twice prior to the last election, and turns out the majority of Americans, we think, depending on how the votes were counted, still voted for him again. In addition to that, we can go through all the convictions and indictments and all that kind of stuff he endured. But it didn't seem to change the minds of Americans. We've got to do things that change the minds of Americans. I think we have to remember above all, and this is sin number 1 for every politician who doesn't know this, and I've been guilty of it plenty of times. You must know that you are not your audience. I am not my audience, and the audience that is relevant here that we're trying to persuade is not us. They don't think like we do. The fact that Donald Trump has been found liable for sexual assault is repulsive to all of us, but irrelevant to many. So we have to think about our audience. And the audience we're trying to persuade voted for Donald Trump because they couldn't pay their bills. And they were probably concerned about crime as well, and there was someone to go point at, and that someone is always somebody who's poorer, has darker skin. We have to win by persuading those we weren't able to persuade before. Another impeachment, of course, won't succeed in this case, even if when it did succeed, it wasn't persuasive. So I want to focus all my energy on winning, because I'm tired of losing, because losing means we all lose. I appreciate the point. I've said very clearly and publicly, I think he's committed many impeachable offenses. I have no interest in spinning on my wheels because I believe they use those efforts to go talk to all the independents and all the folks who might be watching Fox News who are maybe thinking, Trump isn't really helping me that much, but they do watch Fox. And what they hear is Democrats aren't doing a damn thing to help you pay bills. They're still just fighting Trump. That's all they do. And they've got Trump, what do they call it? Trump dysphoria? Derangement syndrome. Yeah, derangement. Another case of Trump derangement syndrome. We've got to get beyond that as Democrats to show that we can lead and win. I appreciate the point. I just respectfully disagree.
Isn't it an all hands on deck moment, though?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Sure.
The districting is very difficult to most people, because I agree with the idea of districts should be equitable.
Yeah.
And I always point out that that it is essential that we do this stuff, and that we can go back to equitable districts after it's clear that we have a constitutional democratic republic.
Yeah.
Because if we don't, once we don't, we don't.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's easily lost, and we've seen that in history. I would just say this. The lines will be drawn in a way that is compliant with the law. They will be equitable, right? The Voting Rights Act dictates what equitable is, and they will comply with federal law, unlike what Texas is doing. Texas will get litigated immediately because it's way out of whack, the VRA, and they're literally taking out colleagues of mine who are black. The only lesbian member of of any congressional delegation in the South. Her district's been on and on and on. We can go on and on. Anyway, so we are following the law. These are going to be equitable. I guess if there's one other thing that you might say to persuade folks, in addition to everything we've talked about, it's this. I was there when the House certified the election and the electors from Electoral College. You all saw it on TV. Kamala Harris had to swallow hard as she presided over that. That happens in the House of Representatives. In 2028, if we don't control the House of Representatives, I'm not sure we're going to have a House that's going to certify electors if the vote doesn't go their way. So this really is, as you say, the stakes are that high, right? This is about the future of our country. Okay.
Okay, Congressman, I want to congratulate you and compliment you on the wonderful good deed you did.
Oh, actually, nobody ever accuses me of
I
that.
have an 83-year-old widow friend. She was erroneously declared dead by the IRS. What happened next is her social security check quit. She went to your office, you shared her brain. I thought it was going to take months to straighten out. A couple of weeks later, it was all in order. Thank you and well done.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. And let me assure you, as with most things that are good, I had nothing to do with it. I have a great team, a really great team, including a couple folks who had worked previously with Anna out here, Nicholas and Justin, and I'm guessing, I don't know, was it your case by any chance, Gisela? It was Nicholas's, okay. Nicholas or Justin's, yeah. They have a lot of experience in this stuff. So the idea is to go find people who know more than you do and make sure they're on your team. Hi.
Bill, 30 seconds while I preface my question. We have a real crisis in healthcare in this country.
Yeah.
Private equity is driving up costs by consolidation of hospitals and doctors' practices. Pharmacy benefit managers are driving up drug costs and putting independent pharmacies out of business. Medicare Advantage is stealing tens of billions of dollars from the Medicare fund.
Yep.
Primary care, there's a shortage of primary care, and this is going to get worse.
Yeah.
Defunding that. Premiums are supposed to go up 8%. You know what happened with the big budget, big beautiful budget that Medicaid is going to be more difficult to apply to.
Yeah.
And they're decreasing funding for Medicaid and taking away subsidies for
Yeah.
ACA.
By the way, premiums will go up more. So we'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So what is the answer? I'm a big single payer advocate personally.
Yeah.
I work for that. That's what my retirement I'm doing. Been doing it for 30 years actually. What's your answer to the healthcare situation in this country? And what's your change to do that?
Yeah, look, if we had a single payer and a Congress that could actually vote for it, I'd support it. We're a long way off, as you know. The most imperative, I have lots of ideas about healthcare, and I won't bore you all with all of them, but I will say the most imperative thing for us today is we need to get those tax credits reauthorized to help people to be able to afford their insurance on the exchange, the ACA exchange, because what we are fighting over in this moment, over this continuing resolution, which you may have already heard about, the House passed it. Every Democrat except one voted against it, as I also voted against it. But it hasn't yet gotten through the filibuster in the Senate. And we're going to keep fighting and fighting and fighting until we get, at the very minimum, among with other things, I think, we need to get those tax credits restored because they're expiring at the end of this year. And in November 1st, people are going to be making their selections on the exchange. So this is a matter of weeks that we have to get these tax credits restored. What we know is for 20 million Americans, without those tax credits being extended, they're going to see their premiums increase 93% for 20 million Americans. And premiums are going to go up for all of us. And the average median increase is going to be about 18%. So that's devastating, right? Devastating. And remember, this is a president and a party that ran on, we're going to lower your cost of living. And we've seen what tariffs have done, interest rates, right? And now this. So this is the message I believe we need to focus on. We are not helping, Trump is not helping anybody pay their bills, except Trump, right? we've got to focus on that message because A, it happens to be true. B, it's what the rest of America cares about, and frankly, a lot of us do, a whole heck of a lot. And C, it's not about us just beating up on Trump. It's about us focusing on what matters to every American family. And so when I think about what's our message, that's our message. So you're going to hear a lot from us over the next several weeks. There may well be a government shutdown. Hell yes, I'm going to shut it down over this and another related issue, which is we can't cut a deal with somebody who can't keep it. It means we need some clear guardrails that ensures that if we pass an appropriations law, it will be actually implemented. Yeah.
With us being bombarded every day with examples of how our government and our institutions are being dismantled.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And it's difficult to not be apathetic, to say, what can I do?
Yeah.
And it's fine to say we're going to elect, do everything we can
Yeah.
to return the Congress to
Thank you.
I can't be alone in this. You're very apathetic about what we want
Thank you.
to do.
Okay, and when you say we, you mean individuals, us citizens here. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yep. Yep. Right. So, yeah. Yeah. I agree. That's the, yeah. And that's the nature of authoritarian regimes, right? Make people feel powerless. And the powerful folks are all lying down, and clearly they are. We saw what happened with ABC. So, first, we need to show folks in the small ways how we can have an impact. Every one of us can do something to get Prop 50 passed, right? We all have a neighbor who's feeling reluctant. Thank you for what you're doing to spread the word. We need to get those neighbors who support it to get out to the polls, right? All the basic nuts and bolts of elections that we know as Democrats. We need to support those folks who are in tough battles, right? I hope to God this thing passes. If not, Adam Gray's going to have another battle, right? Et cetera, et cetera. We need to support our nonprofits who are hanging on by a thread and holding up families who are holding on by a thread. So continue to be, we have the resources to do everything we can to support our nonprofit organizations that are doing the most in our community. And then there was a study that came out of Harvard about how you stop authoritarian regimes. What's the most effective mechanism? It turns out that looking at a whole bunch of different countries over the last century, the most effective tool is a nationwide strike. A nationwide strike. So this is the time with our organizations, and we've got a lot of civic organizations that are deeply involved, right? Swing Left and obviously Democrats and many others that we're all participating in. This is a time when we start to plan. At some point, we may have to shut it all down. I am not the architect of that strategy, as you can imagine. I'm not a guy who came from organized labor. I'm willing to take the lead, to take the suggestions to folks who are. But if we cannot create a strong path for us to win in the ballot box, we're going to need to shut it down, and I'll be out there in the streets. I know there's been a lot written about it. I also know that there are a lot of companies that are deeply involved, some of which are using AI to help us better utilize and distribute peak loads to ensure the resilience of our grid. Where I think there's some bipartisan agreement is around accelerating permitting for the grid and for energy generation and storage. Obviously, I'm very concerned what the Republicans really mean by energy generation is much different than what I think energy generation should be. And we're fighting out those battles now. Yeah. So look, I think the most important technology to save our planet, in my view, are batteries. not that exciting, not sexy, but we need batteries. If we can accelerate the rate at which we're coming down the cost curve on energy storage, we can make wind and solar and everything else a much more viable path for us in the future. And it's going to happen. We just need to accelerate it. And part of that means we need to incentivize folks to go invest in it. And yes, we're probably going to need some small modular nuclear, but that's a few years off. It's going to take time to make sure it's safe and all those things, right? Obviously, you got a lot of folks preaching drill, baby, drill. And I think there's a bit of a dispute about whether or not, even from a cost standpoint, that's the most effective way to be providing energy, particularly in greenfields. You got to go build like gas infrastructure and so forth. I personally think that we're smart enough to find better paths. And I'm going to do everything I can to be pushing on these companies to say, no, do what you believe in. Because I know that a lot of them, these are companies out here. I know what they believe in. So this is going to be our battle. And if there's any advantage we got, well, look, there's been a lot of environmental rollbacks we know already from this administration. And we've got to do everything we can to win in 26 to be able to halt what's going on. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I just want to ask you about Medicaid and the debt program. What is the likelihood that we can restore some of those fundings if we can move back to Congress in 2026?
We'd have to get both houses back. I feel pretty good about getting the House back based on the data I'm seeing. The Senate is going to be a heavier lift. So I don't know the answer to that. But if Trump's numbers continue to drop, it's all in play. Just win, baby. Yeah. Yeah. Can I just say something? I know that we got more questions, but I just want to say something in response to, I don't think I answered your question very well, and I just want to go back to it because a lot of people are feeling demoralized. There's a lot of data out there that should give us hope, right? And Camus said, look, if you feel it is time in hopelessness, it is times of hopelessness, it is incumbent upon us to invent hope. So let me invent hope for a minute. I don't have to work that hard. There's a lot of data that tells us. Two state legislative seats in Iowa, heavily red, went to Democrats in the last few weeks. A state house seat in Pennsylvania, red district, went to a Democrat. In Florida, we had 2 congressional districts that shifted. They stayed red, but they shifted to the blue by between 16 and 25 points. Okay? We saw what happened when Elon spent $25 million. Yeah, they love this. This is great. Elon spent $25 million to win a judge's seat in Wisconsin, and he lost, right? Look, the fact that you're out in the streets matters. People are seeing it. They're seeing that other Americans are pissed for all the right reasons.
Not just Americans, other countries.
Oh, yeah, the whole world's pissed at us, yeah. God, what we've done with India is appalling. So I just want to assure you that there is reason for hope in the data. Not just what we're looking at, but what we're actually seeing happening. You know, Abigail Spanberger is going to win big in Virginia. We're going to have a battle in New Jersey. We've got opportunities to show real momentum. Hi, Kathy. We got a lot of Republicans who believe that the political science is the one true science. So here we go. Yeah. I'm spending a fair amount of time meeting with advocacy organizations and, I guess, for example, the back of a church just recently with groups of farm workers, Pescadero, to make sure people have as accurate information as possible, because we know one thing that's happening, particularly in the immigrant communities, and we saw this under Trump 1, is that the chisme can be as destructive as the truth. In fact, more destructive, because as soon as somebody sees a cop show up or a sheriff show up somewhere, then somebody else says, oh, it looked like there was ice, and then before you know it, everybody's scared of going to the store because they saw somebody in uniform at the... So working with organizations like I know we have rapid response networks in both counties. Super important for us to make sure we are communicating with each other and plugged in and constantly talking to each other so that we mitigate the fear, because the fear is what's killing our communities right now. We need people to go to work. We need kids to go to school. We want people to go to their doctors, and we know that that's not happening often because of the fear. Now, we're not yet seeing significant ICE activity in terms of raids. We are seeing individualized arrests based on individuals who have deportation orders. What's the difference? Well, obviously, the raids, like what we saw in that Korean auto plant, are what terrifies communities and forces everybody into a complete, to a frozen state. I believe that the reason why we haven't seen those raids in this area like we have in other parts of the country are twofold. One is we have local law enforcement that will not participate, so they don't yet have the people to be able to go engage in those raids. And secondly, we don't have a federal detention facility in Northern California. The closest one's in Bakersfield. Now, all that could change as a result of this big, ugly pile of whatever bill. And now they now have resources. So I know they're looking at Dublin potentially as a conversion site for detention. So I want to do everything I can to disrupt and slow that down. Because I feel like as long as they don't have the resources here, they're not going to be doing it here. And then we've just got to do everything we can to at least ensure people have the facts so they can make good decisions for themselves and their families.
Can you also speak to the transition?
Yeah. And this was a really emotional one this week. Sarah McBride, who's a colleague, for those of you who don't know, is a trans colleague of mine in the House. Had a really powerful moment with the caucus as we were debating this horrible resolution relating to Charlie Kirk. We need to demonstrate in every way we can that we are going to stand up for every member of our community. And certainly we have local laws, state laws, that protect every member of our community as they should be protected, and that we're going to utilize those state laws with our local resources to continue to protect individuals regardless, whatever their status might be. Again, I think what we need to do is make sure we're continuing to communicate more and more and more. And if there are advocacy groups you think that I need to be talking to, please let me know. I'll sit down with them. I'm here this whole week because they shut down the Congress, you probably saw. So I'll be around all week. I'll be meeting with folks throughout the district. And I'd welcome more conversations to ensure we can get information to people accurately and listen to them.